Hello.
Aloha, everybody. Aloha. Thank you guys for joining us tonight and tuning in. We're really excited today to have a guest speaker helping us help you build wealth tax free. With that, we are Rise Capital Investments. My name is Zasha Smith, along with my partner, Emma Powell. We have a special guest speaker, Nate Hare, on here from Directed IRA. And before we jump in, I wanted to share a debt deal that we just got that is open for investment. So if you currently are looking for something to invest in, it is a private lending deal where you can get cash flow. It is located in South Jordan, Utah, where majority of our partners live in. You can expect a typical between 10 to 12% return depending on the amount you put in. It's a 6-month short-term loan. The loan to value is almost 70%, so you're pretty well protected. If you have any questions or want to get in on this deal, we do have limited spots available for investors. So go to partnerwithrise.com to find out more information on our current investments available.
Yep. And this is one of the ways that we help you build wealth. Like this is what our own families, this is the income that we are using to support our families. So we find that the reliability of the private lending for if you're investing in cash and you're actually using it as income is so comforting. And if you're compounding it, if you're not pulling out for living expenses, the compounded returns over, say, a 3 to 5 year period of time is really starting to equal or match what equity deals are doing with far less risk. And so this is what we prefer for our management of our family income. And if you put it inside of an IRA, those interest income will basically be either tax deferred or tax free. And that's why we have Nate here to talk to us tonight about how to do tax free investing with your IRA. Nate, can you briefly introduce yourself and kind of talk about your history and your background on how you know all this stuff about self-directed IRAs?
Yeah, so it's really by chance. I didn't go to school planning to teach about retirement accounts or IRAs or 401ks. That was not on my radar. But I did love real estate. Right out of college, I got into real estate investing. I got into mortgage lending. That's kind of where I got my start in real estate back in, say, 2004. And in 2012, a company out of Texas recruited me to teach people about how to buy real estate inside of a retirement account. And I had never even heard that was possible. I said, I have a retirement account at Northwestern Mutual. It's got stocks and bonds and things like that. How do you take that and buy rental properties? Because I was doing all of that outside of an IRA. I was making more money on those types of investments, but I was just taught that an IRA or 401k was just something you just put money in and you forgot about it and someone else invested it for you. I had no idea you could put those two ideas together and actually use IRAs to invest in alternative assets like real estate, notes secured by real estate, private companies. I mean, you can almost own anything on the planet in an IRA. You just have to find a company that's willing to hold the asset for you. So in 2012, I got full on into self-directed IRAs because I wish I knew about it 10 years prior to learning about it. Most people still in the industry of real estate don't even understand that it's out there and available to them. And most people, I would say, if they knew that it existed, would be able to retire 10 to 20 years earlier than they could. And it's just the fact that they don't know what they don't know.
Yes. We had the same kind of trap when we first started. We were at actually real estate networking event, and the speaker was saying, it says, raise your hand if you have a self-directed IRA. And I raised my hand because when I logged into my 401k plan, I could choose which mutual fund I wanted to invest in. So I thought it was self-directed. And I got home and I said, how would I do this for real estate? Like what he was talking about. And it obviously, I'm poking around. I'm pretty embarrassed. I'm like, I don't actually know what this is. So doing some research, I discovered I was pretty ignorant. It was not self-directed. I could not invest in real estate, couldn't do it through my 401k. And we had some rollovers that we had just still sitting in the company plan because we didn't know what to do with it. So we rolled it over to self-directed and off we go. And we did retire in less than 10 years after we discovered this. And it's not the only tool that we use, but it definitely changed our path of thinking and the types of actions we were taking.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is, it's the legal playbook on how to eliminate taxes and invest in things that you're more knowledgeable about. And I love to, share some slides and talk about what a self-directed IRA is. Let's just define it define it. What is it? Like, how's it work? Why is it different? You'll find that it's really not different. All the IRAs are really the same. When we say self-directed, it's just a marketing term. That's why when you thought you had a self-directed IRA, because you could pick stocks and bonds, they might have even called it a self-directed IRA, because self-directed, it's just a marketing term. When you have an IRA or a 401k, that IRA or 401k fits the same set of rules, no matter if it's at Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Wells Fargo, or directed IRA. They're all governed by the same sets of rules. The only thing that changes is what your custodian of your account is willing to buy on your behalf. And we're willing to buy alternative assets in the name of your IRA. And that's been legal ever since the mid-70s. And it's phenomenal what you can do in it. And I'll even teach about maybe some creative strategies you can use as well. So,
looking back, I realized about a year before I was at this real estate event, we were talking to a friend of ours. He has a tech startup, and he was talking about how his friends and family were investing in his tech startup through their retirement accounts. And he was on the phone with somebody kind of walking them through the process of how to get their retirement account converted over so that they could invest in his private company. And looking back, that's exactly what was going on. He was teaching them how to self-direct their IRA for their investment. And I don't think I even picked up on it even then. So the first time I heard about it, just kind of in one ear and out the other. And the second time was misinformed. And then finally kind of got on the board. And I think a lot of our listeners are probably in the same boat, where the first time they heard about it, they either didn't notice or didn't understand what it was. So fire away, define the term, show us how it can be a powerful tool in helping people to retire.
And do I have slides? Do I just click slides and PDFs? Is that how I start sharing, or clicking through?
So I think if you just hover over the slide, or press your arrow key and see if that will advance it. Does that work?
Let's
see.
Yeah, it gives me the option to share screen, but I don't know how I can control your screen.
Oh, yeah. Well, if I hover over, like right where Zash's little picture is, there's a little navigation bar that goes that direction, but you might not have that.
Yeah, I don't see a navigation bar on my side. So,
well, you just tell me next slide and I'll advance. Okay.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. We'll just fly through this. Okay, so let's just talk about what is a self-directed IRA. We kind of defined it. It's a marketing term. In the mid-70s, IRAs were created, and when they were created, they've always been able to hold and own the same things. Any investment outside of life insurance contracts and collectibles can be owned in an IRA. Those are the only two investments the IRS says we don't want those in your retirement account. So life insurance contracts and collectibles, that's it. Everything else is fair game. Stocks and bonds are considered what we call traditional investments. That's easy to do. You have an account with Charles Schwab or Fidelity, you log in, you press a button, and they buy stock for you on Wall Street, and they hold as evidence of the investment what's called a stock certificate. That's evidence of what your retirement account owns. We do the same thing at Directed IRA. We just don't buy stock. We buy things like real estate. We fund promissory notes secured by real estate. We invest our retirement accounts or our clients' retirement accounts into private companies or private equity or debt funds. The only thing that's different in that equation is the document that we hold showing what the IRA owns. Fidelity holds stock certificates. We hold deeds. Fidelity holds bonds. We hold it, private placement memorandums or promissory notes. It's just a different document that shows what your IRA owns. And here's the coolest thing about IRAs is you can have as many IRAs as you want. And that's powerful because if you really want to diversify and maybe invest in some mutual funds or some stocks, I'm not against that. But if you want to invest in what we call Main Street assets, private real estate, multifamily, commercial property, loans secured by real estate, which I'll talk a lot about today because that's actually what I do with my retirement account. I like to just lend my money out and use my IRA like a bank and have borrowers pay my IRA interest payments that I just sit back and let the income come in. I call it mailbox money, right? It's all completely tax-free too. You still get all your tax benefits that you get with an IRA. And we'll talk about the different types of IRAs that I love that can be self-directed, that can really create tax-free generational wealth for you and your heirs through just the power of self-direction and understanding how these IRAs work. So if you want to go to the next slide there, Emma.
Let me briefly ask you a question here. If you want your money in some publicly traded companies, the public markets, so stocks and bonds, mutual funds, things like that, you typically will leave that with your traditional custodian, your M1, your Robinhood or whatnot, or Fidelity. and that
Yes.
way that's how you leave it. And then if you want privately traded,
Mhm.
so the alternative or passively held IRA administrators, you don't do public markets, correct?
So we actually do both. We're one of the few custodians that if you wanted to park all your retirement funds here, we
Hmm.
have the ability to self-direct it into alternative investments,
Okay.
and we have the ability to invest it in public investments as well.
Okay.
Now, I'll just be honest. I think that you should use two companies to hold your IRA assets. Use the ones that are good at what they do. The
Yes.
Fidelities and the Charles Schwabs, they have the platforms, they have the connections down on Wall Street. Use them to buy those investments because they're set up to buy and hold those investments. But if you want to invest in real estate, if you want to buy a rental property, if you want to do a loan to raise capital on their next deal and get some interest income, Fidelity's not going to do it. They don't get paid on it. They don't know how to process it, and they don't sell it at the end of the day. They're a financial services company selling investments. They don't sell that investment. When you have an IRA with us, we don't have investments to sell, but we'll hold anything else that they will hold. So if you want to invest in Main Street assets, you have to have an IRA with a company like us because they won't do it. So the good thing is have companies or have IRAs at two companies. I've got a Charles Schwab account. I've got a directed IRA account.
Got it.
All I do is I move money back and forth between those IRAs depending on where I need to invest it. Public assets over here, alternative assets over here. And transfers between IRAs aren't even reported to the IRS. You can move money back and forth between an IRA at Fidelity and an IRA at directed IRA as many times as you want. You just pay a wire fee to move it.
Yeah, that's a good question because people say like the day you liquidate the stock and move it over to you so that you can buy real estate with it, they're like, oh, you're going to get taxed on that. I'm like, no, you won't. So that's an important distinction you made.
Yeah. And a lot of wealth advisors get confused on this now. Wealth advisors that don't understand self-direction will talk you out of it because they think when you go and let's say somebody listens to this webinar tonight and then they go to their Fidelity guy and they go, hey, I heard this crazy guy, Nate, talking about buying real estate in an IRA. And I want to use my IRA to buy real estate. What that unsophisticated investor is thinking is you're going to take a distribution of that IRA to yourself and go run and buy real estate. So they're going to say, no, you don't want to do that. You realize all the taxes and penalties you're going to have to pay to do that? They're thinking you're taking a distribution.
Yeah.
You're not taking a distribution when you're buying an alternative asset. You're simply moving money to another IRA at another licensed custodian, directed IRA. And then once the money is in your IRA with us, you're going to identify the investment. And we'll talk about this in some future slides here. Mm-hmm. But you're going to instruct us to buy the investment with the IRA. We're not handing you the money so you go buy it. We buy it just like Fidelity buys your stock. So in that case, it's actually an asset purchase. It's not a distribution. Okay. And that is where you get your massive tax benefit. So you have to work through a custodian. So you're buying and selling investments through the custodian, not taking distributions to buy it yourself.
That makes sense. Yeah. And when we did our first transfer, our Fidelity guy warned us that it was a scam. And I was like, it's okay, honey. We know what we're talking about. You're 27. You'll figure it out eventually.
so I'll tell a story on that too, because again, it's kind of funny. I was just in an event in Idaho last weekend, and I had a gal tell me, she stood up and she said, hey, I just want to say something. She goes, I listened to Nate talk last year and I made one mistake. She goes, I didn't call Nate first to start this self-directed IRA investing. I called my guy at Fidelity first. And she called her guy at Fidelity, and Fidelity says, oh, no, you don't want to do that. That's really risky, and you don't want to invest in alternatives. And she goes, well, excuse me, I think I can make that decision for me. I'll make a decision on what I want to invest in. And he said, okay, well, it takes a lot of work. You got to fill out a lot of forms, and it takes a couple weeks. And she goes, well, why don't you send me the form? Right? And we're just a transfer form, all we were really asking for. And he said, it's going to take a week. And she goes, I want it by 5 p.m. tomorrow. How about that? So he says, it's got to take all these steps, and it's going to take forever. She gets the form. She fills it out. She sends it back to him. She picks up the phone. She calls her Fidelity guy again. She goes, okay, what's the next step? And he goes, that was the only step. So he purposely tried to talk her out of it because, again, you got to realize these aren't bad guys, but they are in the nature to sell investments. And when you move your money out, they don't make money on your money anymore. Yeah. So what I tell people is invest your retirement account into the things you're knowledgeable about. You're going to have to use a custodian at some point, but invest in what you're knowledgeable about and look at the returns that real estate can give you in a secured fashion. That's the thing that really helps me sleep at night when I compare my Charles Schwab account to my directed IRA account. And I'll just give my own personal example. My Charles Schwab account, even especially right now, every time I log in, I want to cry. I'm just like, how does this keep? It's just a bloodbath every single day. But I have no control over what's happening in there. I can pick different stocks, but you turn on the news and you got this and that, and CNBC is going. I mean, it just feels like I don't have any control over how that IRA goes up or down.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, my self-directed IRA has been investing in notes for about a decade now. Okay. I simply do loans or hard money lending out of my retirement account to real estate flippers. Okay. Now, there's a reason why I do this. I don't want to have to go find the property. I like real estate, but I don't have time to go find deals. There's people that are way better equipped than I am that are actually out there marketing and finding deals and negotiating with sellers. They're better at doing that, but they do need financing. And I've got money in a retirement account that can be used for financing. In fact, almost everybody has money in a retirement account. There's $45 trillion in US retirement accounts. And this is the bucket of money that I use. Now, I specifically use my self-directed Roth IRA, and I also have a self-directed health savings account. Health savings accounts are great accounts that can be self-directed. Both have massive tax benefits to them. But when I direct my investment, I get to negotiate the terms with the borrower. They send me a deal that they're looking for funding on. I can negotiate terms, and we've got a pretty boilerplate way we do business. I can get double-digit returns in most cases, but my money is secured by the real estate. So it's collateralized. I know that I'm never going to lose the face value. If I'm underwriting my deals pretty well, I'm always going to at least have collateral, which is the property, in the event the borrower dies or something happens. Okay, so that's number one. I'm secured by a tangible investment, and the note is what has the agreement as to what the borrower is going to pay. So it's spelled out right in the note that I'm going to get a payment every single month from the borrower. I don't have to turn on CNBC. I just log online and see it between the 1st and the 5th. Did the borrower make the payment or not? If they did, great. If they didn't, I pick up the phone and call them. And sometimes, I've been on vacation, and they send the payment. But it's extremely predictable because I negotiated the terms. I get 12 to 14%. And you said it, Emma, I can also compound my interest. So I strategically put my money out in the market on shorter term deals. Now, why do I like shorter term deals in a Roth IRA or an HSA? Well, truthfully, I don't want to have a note to a borrower for 30 years. Plus, they don't want my money for 30 years because they don't want to pay that high amount of interest.
Yeah.
What most of my borrowers are doing is they just need the money to pick up the property and make a cash offer. They need to get the property. They need to get it under contract. They've got a motivated seller. They want to just get it under contract and start working on it. And then after they own the property, maybe a year, they sell the property, and then I get my money back as the lender, or they refinance to conventional financing and hold it as a rental. But either way, I usually get paid back all of my principal within 6 to 18 months, which is good because then I can redeploy that money right back into their next deal and rinse and repeat. So if you ran the numbers, if you just started with $100,000 and all you did secured promissory note investing at, let's say, 12 to 14%. I'm just throwing out some numbers there. Okay. If you just compounded that for 20 years, 100 grand, that would be $1.4 million without making a single contribution to your plan. That's important because with the cost of living today, you can't save your way to retirement like our parents or grandparents did. You can't work and have a bunch of money left over after you pay your bills to throw in your retirement account. That's how our parents and grandparents saved. We got to find a way to invest. We got to be smarter with our money because we have less of it because of the cost of living. That's a whole nother topic, but you got to find a way to use compounding interest as in your favor. You got to find a way to eliminate taxes from your life. And the playbook is right there for everybody. They just don't teach it to us in school. So again, when I'm lending my self-directed IRA funds out, it's going out, right? It's an investment and it's coming back tax-free. And here's the coolest thing about a Roth IRA. If anybody has a Roth IRA, you probably know this. If you don't have a Roth IRA, you need to set one up. But once you have a Roth IRA for 5 years and you're above the age of 59 and a half, all of your Roth IRA becomes tax-free for the rest of your life. you never have to pay a dime in taxes till the day you die. So I'll give you another story. I'm just full of stories right now. So I've got a client that owns rental properties. Okay. He doesn't do loans, but he just takes title to property, and the properties are owned by his self-directed Roth IRA. So he's been buying properties with his Roth IRA through us as the custodian, right? And he has 12 rental properties now owned by his self-directed Roth. Those are the investments held in his Roth IRA. It's not owned by him, the taxpayer. It's not owned by his LLC. It's owned by his self-directed Roth. So every month he has 12 properties where renters are paying rent to the Roth. Okay. Those aren't contributions to the Roth. That's income. Okay. So income's unlimited. Every time the renters pay rent, since he's 59 and a half, he can take the rents out to himself tax-free and penalty-free for the rest of his life. So he gets about $30,000 in rents going to his Roth IRA, which we send him a check on a recurring distribution to him, to his bank account, and he pays no taxes on any of that money. So while he's taking about $300,000 of tax-free income just from the assets being held in the Roth, his Roth IRA increases in value every year because the properties appreciate in value. He's just living off the cash flow. So he's got his retirement funded through just stacking real estate assets in a tax-free account. But his bigger long-term plan is when he dies, his kids get those assets in an inherited Roth IRA. Mm-hmm. And they get tax-free distributions for another 10 years after he's passed. So the beautiful part about a Roth IRA is that you are off the grid, and the goal line for everybody is to just try to get your Roth IRA to a point where it can accumulate appreciating, cash flowing, interest earning assets at 59 and a half that can just fund your retirement and you pay no taxes. If you got a large enough Roth IRA at that point, I say make every investment in your Roth, never do an investment as a taxpayer again. So
yes, and the question that you mentioned, the HSA that you're investing in, Kay Kwok asked if she's wondering if it's possible to hold the HSA or the health savings account. So it's my understanding that any investable account can be self-directed, solo, 401k, SEP. What accounts can be self-directed?
So we have 6 different accounts that can be self-directed. We have the personal plans, which are traditional IRA and Roth IRA. And again, it's a self-directed, traditional, self-directed, Roth. Self-directed is just a marketing term. Traditional IRAs, sometimes they're called rollover IRAs. That's where your old 401ks usually roll into, or your 403bs. So we've got the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. Both can be self-directed.
Okay.
We also have the employer plans. If you're self-employed, you can self-direct a SEP IRA or a solo 401k. Great wealth building tools, large contributions to those plans. They can be self-directed as well. And then we have what I say, would you like fries with that order? Is the specialty plans, which are your health savings account and education savings accounts for kids. So these are like 529 plans, but they're called Coverdell Education Savings Accounts. These are not retirement accounts, but they are still tax-exempt trusts, just like the other plans are, that can be self-directed. The cool thing about those accounts is those accounts can earn income through its investments, and you don't have to wait until 59 and a half to take the money out and use it. You see, an HSA, you could take the distributions from the HSA earnings the day you make the earnings and pay for qualified medical expenses tax-free. So that scenario that I gave you where my Roth and my HSA do a loan to a real estate investor, when that real estate investor pays directed IRA, the payment is split between my Roth and my HSA. So the money in my Roth, I'm going to just keep it in my Roth till 59 and a half. But the money that's split to my HSA on that investment, I can take out to myself to buy glasses, prescriptions, acupuncture, dental work, and any eye things. All that can be paid with tax-free dollars from my HSA investments. Most people don't even realize you can invest in HSA. You can invest it, and you can even invest it in alternatives.
Yes.
And then the education savings account is the other account that is like, just like an HSA, you invest, but you have a designated beneficiary for those accounts, which are kids. And these accounts can be invested, and you can take the earnings on the investments out immediately to pay for qualified education expenses for kids or grandkids. And these are expenses from pre-K all the way through college. Mm-hmm. So that's like tuition, computers, books, iPads, tutoring, homeschooling, trade school, all the things that you're paying for right now when it comes to healthcare and education can most likely be paid through your investments and tax-free earnings by doing it in those accounts.
Yes.
So the power is if you look at all these accounts, traditional, Roth, SEP, solo 401k, HSA, ESA, they all have different uses to them. They all have different ways you can take distributions tax-free. And if you can find ways to partner them together, even on the same investments, well, now you got tax-free dollars going in and tax-free dollars coming out. And not only can you pay for current needs, you can fund your retirement as well, all through your self-directed IRA investment or self-directed investments.
This is great because I feel like because it's called directed IRA or self-directed IRA, people think they can only use it in retirement, but it's a way. Let's take, for example, somebody who wants to retire early and they can't get to those accounts until they're 59 and a half, but they want to retire at 50. They're going to have to figure out a gap, a way to live, but you can use those ESAs and HSAs to cover, like you said, the education of your kids' college, things like that. If you want to go back to school and basically change careers in early retirement, or your healthcare, and it's a great way to be basically a way to self-cover with your insurance, because you have a way to pay. Can you pay your premiums out of an HSA?
You can't pay your premiums unless you're unemployed. Unemployed, you can pay for COBRA with it.
Got it.
Yeah, and they've toyed around with changing that rule, but the premium you have to pay to have the insurance, and the type of insurance you need to have an HSA, it's called a high deductible health plan. Yes. I know they all seem like they're high deductible.
Yeah,
well, call your health insurance provider and ask them, is my health insurance HSA compatible? Yes. And the HSA is just a savings account. It's not the insurance. You've got your insurance over here. The HSA is a savings account that, when you put money into it, you get a tax deduction on the money you put in. Okay, so that's a benefit just by funding it. I don't even have to invest it. I get free money back through the write-off. But then as I invest my HSA, it grows like a Roth tax-free, and then I can take the money out when I earn it tax-free to pay for qualified health expenses. So yes, you're right. What do you do in the meantime before retirement? You use the accounts that you can use today, which are your HSAs and your ESAs. And if you really think about this now, you can get strategic about which plans go into which investment. If you understand that these accounts over here, the HSA and the ESA, I can use immediately. And then these accounts over here, let's say your Roth IRA, I might have to wait a little bit for 59 and a half. Then that's how you invest those accounts. You do your shorter term deals. I'm not giving investment advice. I'm just giving you hypotheticals.
Yeah.
You do your shorter term deals. Let's say a 6-month loan to Rise Capital on a deal that they've got hot in where's that? Idaho? Or is that Utah?
Oh, Utah, right there.
Oh, Utah. Okay. Okay. Let's say, 6-month terms. Look at that. Okay. So if we want to invest tax-free dollars and use it in 6 months, okay, maybe I use my HSA and maybe I have some kids and I set up some ESAs for them. And those are the accounts I use to do the 6-month deal. Why? Because I get to use the money in 6 months. Use my Roth, but again, I have to reinvest that. But maybe I save my Roth for some investments on the shelf. I'll just give you an example. I've got a client that has 5 properties that he bought subject to. We're going to talk about a more complex strategy, right? Subject to. Now, he specifically went out to find investments that fit the needs of his Roth IRA. And this was genius of him. This is back in 2012. He was finding a lot of deals in 2012 that investors were passing on. Beginning investors were passing on. These were individuals that had stopped making their mortgage payment. They were underwater. They owed more on the house than what it was worth. But all of these properties were in good shape because they were owner occupied and they were in good areas. So he was walking into these properties going, gosh, it doesn't cash flow, but it does rent. The rents in the area will cover the mortgage. So what if I took my Roth IRA and negotiated terms with the seller and said, hey, look, you're 6 months behind on your mortgage payment. What if I caught up your mortgage payments, gave you some cash for keys, and just took over your payments on your mortgage going forward? That's called buying subject to, buying it with the existing loan still in place. Now, for most of these homeowners, they didn't have another solution. They were going to get foreclosed on. They couldn't sell the property. So they said, okay, yeah, we'll do that, right? And even give some cash for keys. So my client's Roth IRA that started with $70,000 through just buying property like that was able to pick up 5 properties with no equity, no positive cash flow. Basically, the rents cover the mortgage, but he was able to take title to the property in the name of the Roth by having the Roth just make the investment of catching up the mortgage payments and giving some cash for keys.
Yes.
So he took title to 5 properties in the Roth IRA with 70 grand. Fast forward to today, all 5 of those properties are paid off free and clear because they've been rented for 15 years. As the properties appreciate in value, so do the rents go up. So what's he been doing with the excess rents that the renters are paying to the Roth? He's been accelerating the mortgage pay downs, right? So the bank's happy. And now these properties, these 5 properties that had no equity in them when he bought them, they're owned free and clear. And these are all in Austin, Texas. Go look up the median price point in Austin, Texas, 700,000 plus. So he took a $70,000 Roth IRA and turned it into $4 million by just using a creative strategy called Subject to. Now, would you do that with an HSA? No, you need the money, but way before that. But it was, to him, it was, let me just put these investments on the shelf because I don't need the money right away and let these investments just ride. Now, I'm not saying you're going to find deals like that right now, but just think about that. These accounts have massive tax benefits to them, and you can actually have fun with it and be strategic and use the ones that make short-term returns that you can use the money, the ESA and the HSA, and just use the other accounts for later, or just partner them all together and use them on the same investment, whatever it is that you want.
Yeah, and this question we just got, does a self-directed work with syndications or funds as an LP for hard money lending? And this kind of goes along with this slide right here. Any common early mistakes to avoid when starting? Because I feel like the biggest mistake that people make is probably trying to direct their own investments because you can't have the IRA investing in something that you control. So if he's bought those houses and they're being rented out, does he have to have a property manager on that? Like, how do you avoid investing in your own stuff? I think it's actually safer to do it as a limited partner, to go into a syndication with your IRA and make sure like you are really not touching this thing.
Yes. So let's talk about the rules on what the IRS does not want us to do with a retirement account. Okay. Now, first of all, when it comes to the investments we can put in there, it's pretty wide open. We said life insurance contracts and collectibles, those are the only 2 things you can't have. So they don't really care what you own in a retirement account, but the IRS does care who you buy it from.
Okay.
So you cannot, your IRA cannot buy your own assets. Okay. Now, why can't it buy my assets? Because I'm the fiduciary to my IRA. I have a responsibility to my IRA to act in the best interest of the IRA, not the best interest of me, the person. I get my benefit from the distributions my IRA kicks me back. Since I'm the fiduciary, I can't tell my IRA to buy my house. I can't tell my IRA to make a loan to me. I'm on both sides of the equation. It's a conflict of interest. So the IRS just doesn't want to play that game. They say, if your IRA makes an investment, it has to invest with what's called a non-disqualified person. Disqualified people are me, my spouse, my parents, my kids, their spouses, and any companies those same people own or control. So I'll repeat that. The people your IRA cannot transact with: yourself, the IRA owner, your spouse, parents, kids. Okay. Now, why don't they disqualify brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and all those? Because when you die, who gets your wealth? Does your brother get it, or does your wife get it?
Okay.
Your wife gets it, right? If she doesn't get it, she's going to dig you out of the grave and kill you again if you give everything to your brother. So wealth is usually passed to the spouse or down to the kids. So the IRS says, okay, those are most likely the people that are going to inherit your IRA. So they're also fiduciaries to your IRA because they're going to get it when you die. So when it comes to that, you can't self-deal, but you also have to be cautious of how active of a role you play in the investment itself. There's something called extension of a service, and I don't want to get too off into the weeds, but I'll just break it down real simply. When I'm dealing with my IRA, I'm like the quarterback. I'm calling the plays, but I'm not holding the ball. I'm not running with it. Okay, I'm calling the plays, which means I can find the investments that are going to be bought in my IRA. The custodian will buy it for me. Let's say it's a rental property that I own in my Roth IRA. Can I find the renters? Can I pick the renters? Yeah, I'm just quarterbacking the deal. That's just me using my brain. Okay. Can I pick the contractors? Yeah, I can pick the contractors. That's just using my brain. I'm being a good fiduciary. Somebody has to make that decision. Can I be the contractor? No, I can't swing the hammer. I can't go in there and actively manage the investment. I can't be the property manager. I can manage it to the extent of putting people in play. I can pick a property manager. I can't be the property manager.
Right.
So, and I can't, when I try to make the distinction, are you using your brain or are you using your brawn? If you're swinging a hammer and using your brawn, you're probably doing something that's prohibited. So you have to stay at least at arm's length. So back to that scenario, when my client bought those properties, he didn't buy them from himself, right? He found other sellers that were in trouble that his Roth bought it from him. And as soon as he took title to the property, he put his property manager in place. Okay. The property manager rented it. The property manager paid the expenses. The property manager collected the rents and sent the net rent. He didn't touch anything. He just put the pieces in play. But you're right. That's a very rare circumstance, actually, in the self-directed IRA space. We've got 20,000 clients. About 5% or less of our clients do that type of deal, because most of our clients, truthfully, have 9-to-5 jobs. They just like to self-direct, and they want somebody else to do all that work. They want somebody else to find the property. They want somebody else to negotiate the terms. They just want to be passive and get a little money off of the income, just like I do with my private money lending. So I would probably say 90% of our clients invest in real estate through passive ways, through note investing or investment into a syndication, investment into a debt fund, investment into some private company that might own real estate, and they're doing all the work. That's usually the easiest entry point for people that are just getting started.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like what you're there for as a custodian, you don't give investing advice, but you certainly can give compliance advice to make sure that people are not investing in the wrong stuff, because you have to improve the investment before you're going to release funds for it. And maybe we can get into some of that in like the advanced techniques for growth, like the LLC control, checkbook control.
Yeah.
When those are a good idea and when those are too expensive and could get the investor into trouble. So we'll do that in the advanced section, but I know a lot of people have questions about that as well.
Okay. So how can our investors leverage self-directed IRAs to achieve diversification? I think we kind of mentioned it, right? It's, you want to look at investments. First is you want to invest in what you're comfortable with, invest in what you're knowledgeable about. But also look at investments as a whole. When I look at a stock versus a piece of property, whether I'm invested passively through a note secured by the property or my IRA owns the property, a property to me is tangible. I mean, you could drive by it, you could touch it, you could feel it has an address, there's a parcel number. I mean, it's right there. You could see it and you can feel it. A stock to me, if I invest in a company that goes belly up, I don't have anything. There's nothing there anymore. The company goes belly up, I lose all my money. So there's obviously some good stocks and some good companies out there, but I don't want to risk my entire nest egg into investments that can literally disappear in the wind, every penny.
Paper assets.
Yeah, paper. They're paper, but it's like paper that can fly away in the wind. Yeah. My paper asset, my note asset, is secured by a property with an address and a parcel number, right? There's a family that lives in it. That's tangible to me. So you want to think about that, because you don't have to be a real estate expert to understand the difference between something that's tangible like this desk and something that's just kind of floating out there in the ether. So IRAs, self-directed IRAs, give you the ability to hold some tangible investments. There's some people that like gold and silver to add to their portfolio as a tangible investment, but that's real diversification. If you've got a wealth advisor that's just got you in some high risk mutual funds, some medium risk mutual funds, and some low risk mutual funds, he's just got you in one asset class. He just diversified you in one asset class. Most really smart people know that that is not true diversification. True diversification is having your assets out into some bonds, some debt, some credit, and some tangible assets. Look at family office makeups. If you ever looked at the diversification of a family office, look at what they invest in. And family offices, you don't know, these are investors that invest with maybe $50 million and up. I mean, these are big funds. And what do they do with their asset makeup? You'll see a lot of them have nearly 50% of their portfolio in tangible alternative assets. Here's the other thing. I'll give you an example of how powerful alternatives are, and you might not even know it. So alternatives are just anything outside of Wall Street. We talk about real estate, debt fund, all those private investments are alternatives. Here was an interesting article. If you don't know, there was an article in Forbes 2020, March 2020. I still remember the date. Forbes came out with this article that said, if you have a self-directed IRA, watch out. And obviously I had to read that article. I'm like, oh man, look at Forbes is picking on self-directed IRAs. Let's see what they have to say. So they had an article that was based on an audit that the IRS did on IRAs. They wanted to see the asset makeup of IRAs, and specifically the asset makeup of IRAs that held alternative assets. And the whole point of the article was to say, if you have alternative assets in your account, watch out, because the rules were changing, that the custodians were going to start asking for values. That was it. The whole article was just about the valuations that happen today, where we have to get a value of the assets. And here's why they wanted to start getting values on assets. When they looked at the asset makeup, they took the audit of 27,000 different IRAs, okay? Random IRAs, 27,000 of them. Out of the 27,000 IRAs, they found that only 2% of those IRAs held an alternative asset of any kind. So 98% of the IRAs they audited just hold stocks and bonds, okay? Of the IRAs they took at the very top, 5 million and above, they took just the highest value IRAs. What was the asset makeup of those in alternative assets? 25%. So anything 5 million and above held 25%, at least minimum, alternative assets. Everybody else had 2, right? Numbers don't lie. The rich and the wealthy have been investing in alternatives in an IRA since the mid-70s. We just never were informed about it because we didn't have the internet prior to back then. You had to know somebody running a syndication. You had to have a buddy at the golf course that was buying a multifamily building. Nowadays, you can get on a webinar here with us and Rise Capital and find out deals. You might be in North Dakota right now finding about a deal in Utah, right? We didn't have that opportunity before. And now we have the opportunity not only to identify those investments, but use our IRAs to invest in them. So
much more diversification, much more open opportunity to be able to not only, like you said, real versus paper assets, but also just even within real estate, like you said, geographically, there are just so many more options now that we can get involved in, and the information that this has been a thing for longer than I've been doing it, right? It's been a thing for quite a while, but I just didn't know because
and I'll tell you, it's powerful too to be able to get your IRA invested into other states. I'll just say, because there's a lot of people, and I won't pick on any states, but I know I've talked to people in certain states that say, I won't even invest in this state. I invest my money elsewhere. So do I. I invest a lot in Texas. I invest some here, but I'm just familiar with Texas. I know the foreclosure laws in Texas. So I just invest where I'm comfortable. Doesn't mean that you can't invest in other states, but the ability to take an IRA and invest anywhere you want, right? And it doesn't have to be in your backyard, is powerful. I mean, you can even invest overseas if you want to, if you feel comfortable with that, right? So anyways, next slide.
Let's chat about this a little bit. We have I mean, when you and I met up at the Utah RIA event a couple of months ago, we had a nice conversation about depreciation, which I think is kind of an advanced topic. A lot of people will reach out to us and say, "Hey, I'm a W-2. You know, my spouse is a W-2. We paying a lot of taxes, so we'd like to invest with you so we can save money on our taxes." And I'm like, we cannot save you money on your taxes because we're loans, and that's interest income, ordinary income. We can also not save you money on your taxes because we don't have depreciation. But even if we did have depreciation, you make too much money and you can't really use it. So there's like, oh, okay, well, I will invest in that in my IRA, and not realizing they can't use the depreciation inside their IRA except for a very limited use case. So can you tell us when depreciation is helpful for the recapture, capital gains, UBIT taxes, all that? Like, how does depreciation help a high net worth couple where neither one of them are self-employed or a full-time real estate investor? And they're like, I'm going to get all this depreciation inside of an account that's already tax advantaged. They can't really put it down. Like, how does that benefit them? And how would that change their decision matrix on what they're investing in?
And all the viewers just have to take what they previously learned about depreciation and just kind of throw it out the door because of this reason. CPAs, God bless them, but CPAs train us and condition us to think that depreciation is the only way to get taxes out of our life. Okay, because they're only concerned about the taxes we pay as an individual, right? When you file your taxes, your CPA is looking at you, right? You have a tax return. Your IRA doesn't have a tax return. You got a 1040, right? And you've got a tax liability on there. So he's going to constantly hammer you with things that we need to get some real estate so you get some depreciation. You need depreciation because you're trying to offset tax. So that's a good thing. There are some great real estate investments. And I would say that real estate investing outside of an IRA is great if you can get the depreciation. Some people are W-2 earners, so they don't get the depreciation. They have to have a spouse that's either full-time real estate investor or get an Airbnb and work on, there's things you can do to offset the tax, but realize that is a dog and pony show that you're going to have to do every single year because you are a taxpayer.
Yeah.
In an IRA, it's different. An IRA, by definition, it's tax exempt trust. There are no taxes to an IRA. So here's the funny thing that I hear some, we'll just call them the in the box CPA, that says, why would you ever buy real estate in an IRA when you don't get depreciation? And I say, well, what do I need to depreciate against if there's no tax? It's tax free. I don't need the depreciation. Nothing's taxed. So, and I think that it just gets people in the mindset that they think, and I've even had people say this to me, Emma, and it's crazy. I would never buy real estate in an IRA because I don't get depreciation. I go, great. So you should invest in stocks instead and get a lower return on something that's less tangible just because you don't get depreciation. I'm going to invest in the thing that gives me the best return and that's safer. And realize that depreciation in IRA is a moot point. It's not a taxpayer, so it doesn't need it. So when I think of my real estate investing, I got to separate myself and my IRA as two people, right? Okay. My IRA is a tax exempt vehicle for life. And if I got a Roth IRA, it's not only tax exempt as it grows, it's tax free when it comes out. I'm just going to invest in whatever makes me the best returns. I don't care about depreciation in a tax exempt account. But in my personal world, yeah, I'm going to find some investments that I might want to do personally that can give me some depreciation. But I'm going to do both. It's not a one or the other thing. You are a person and your IRA is a different entity. So it just don't get caught up in that you need depreciation, you need depreciation. Now, I will tell you there are circumstances, and I don't want to get too off in the weeds, where an IRA does become a taxpayer. Could be a good thing, but we're talking about when an IRA, let's say an IRA wants to buy a property and you only have a down payment. You don't have the full amount to buy a rental property. Okay. Does that get you out of the game? No, you don't need all of the acquisition cost to buy a property because there's banks out there that have loans for IRAs. They're called non-recourse IRA lenders. If you want to just Google it or go to our website, we've got a tab, a resource tab has a list of about 12 different IRA non-recourse lenders. In the event that my IRA is just going to put like 30% down on the property and borrow 70% from a bank, the 70% loan is taxable to my IRA. Okay. It doesn't mean it's bad. I'm buying an investment that I couldn't have bought because I didn't have enough money in the IRA. So once my IRA has a tax liability on the money it borrows, guess what it gets to use? Depreciation. Now that there's a tax, now I get to use the depreciation. Mm-hmm. So it's a good offset. It's not going to happen all the time. And some people just get scared of this tax. If you're scared of the tax, guess what? Just stay as a lender. Lenders don't have to worry about tax. As long as you don't own anything, you don't have to pony up and pay any taxes. Mm-hmm. And here's the cool thing. On lending specifically, lending inside of an IRA and outside of an IRA, huge pendulum shift. Because you get no tax benefits by lending your personal money. That's ordinary income to you as a taxpayer. Unless you've got a lending business where you can write off some expenses. If I'm going to loan $100,000 as Nate Hare, right, to Emma or to Rise Capital, Nate Hare pays taxes on that money. Okay, not the end of the world, but my IRA pays no taxes when it loans, right? So there's a big difference on lending. I would say if you've got an IRA, if you got 100 grand in your IRA and you got 100 grand personally, why would you lend the money you get taxed on? Lend the IRA funds. You don't get taxed on that. Right.
Yeah. The only time we have people really lending a lot of money in cash, again, it's that early retirement type of thing where they're like, I need to figure something out to have some cash flow and live on between 50 and 59 and a half. But there has to be a strategic look at when do I actually want to retire? How much money do I need? And keeping that minimal outside the IRA so that you can just survive for a few years, get yourself through, and then you can start accessing the IRA. So understanding the tax benefits and the tax drawbacks can help you kind of figure out how much you want to allocate to each, because everybody's situation is different, but it's important to recognize if you want to retire early, these are some things you have to be concerned with. And this stuff takes some management. The thing that you mentioned about having to do your annual reporting about the value of your assets in there, like Nobody's going to do that for you. I don't know. My CPA kind of does it for me. But the
Okay.
point is like that takes a little bit of extra management. It takes a little bit of extra work and a little bit of extra knowledge. And there is a small trade-off there for becoming educated to make sure that you don't do something that's prohibited, make sure that you turn in your annual reports. Like these advanced tactics here really do take some understanding. But to me, it's like I'm making money. So it's going to be a little bit like a job. I have to put
Yeah.
something into it. It's not as set it, forget it as some of our other options. But that's fine because I'm going to make more money. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with it that way.
Yeah.
We did some case studies. Do you want to do this slide or do you want to skip this one?
Let's see. What lessons can be learned from investors who have successfully used STIRAs to propel their investing journey? I told some stories. I would probably say the one thing that I would just give a piece of advice to is just start an IRA. Some people just don't even start one, or at least get through. Do a self-directed IRA investment. Just do one. Do a small one. And I'm not pitching any specific deals. But the reason I think most people don't self-direct is it's just the fear of the unknown. I've never done it before, right? It's just, I don't know how it works. And, if you get through and self-directing an account, and I'll use this to talk about the process. How do you actually take an IRA and go do a loan to raise capital or lend to a real estate flipper or buy a rental property? It's really a three-step process. First, you got to open an account with a company that'll hold the asset for you. That would be directed IRA. So you open an account, you fill out an application online, takes 5 minutes, you pay $50 to have the account. Okay. Once you've got the account open, you do what's called an IRA transfer or a rollover if we're moving money from an old 401k, or maybe you just left your job, you had a 403b or a TRS or a TSP plan or a 457 plan. You might have had a plan with a company you worked at. Those funds can be rolled into an IRA, self-directed IRA or otherwise. Or if you've got a IRA at Fidelity or Charles Schwab, you can just do a full or a partial transfer to move money from them to us. Okay, so you open the account and you fund it. We've got a form that we send to Fidelity or Charles Schwab. They just wire the funds within 3 days. Okay, so you've got the money in the IRA now. How do you deploy it? Okay. We usually need two things as your self-directed IRA custodian. We need your direction to make the investment, and that's just done on a form. Okay, we have different forms. You go on our website, you pick the investment that you're investing in. You say, I'm investing in a note. It's going to pull up a note. You fill out the note information, which is going to be what's the borrower's name? Is there an address? How much do you want to loan? Right? What's the wiring instructions? Is there a title company? Real fill in the blank, and sometimes your borrower can help you fill that in. It's e-signature, so you don't even have to print it. Okay, you just fill out that. It's called our direction of investment form. That gives us the authority to make the investment. And then with that authority, we need a copy of the agreement. Whatever the agreement is for the investment, we need to sign that. Okay. So if I'm doing a loan to a real estate investor and it's going to be a secured promissory note, I just need the promissory note. I need to have an attorney or my borrower can have it drafted. I need a promissory note that has all the terms that me and the borrower discussed. And in that lender line where it says lender, my IRA is going to be listed as the lender. Okay. So if I have any IRA here at Directed IRA, let's say my Roth IRA is going to be the lender, it's going to read Directed Trust Company. That's the custodian. Directed Trust Company, FBO stands for the benefit of Nate Hare, Roth IRA. Directed Trust Company, FBO, Nate Hare, Roth IRA. That's the lender. Okay. Directed IRA signs if they need to sign as the lender, but now they've got the agreement and now they've got the instruction that I gave them with the direction investment form, and they send the funds right from my Roth straight to the title company. Okay. Now, if I'm doing, let's say, a secured promissory note in Texas, I'm also going to have a deed of trust. So directed IRA is going to hold a deed of trust and a note or a mortgage. Here's evidence of my investment. So depending on the investment, the agreements might change. Like if you're going to invest in a syndication, you might have a PPM, a private placement memorandum. You might have an operating agreement and a subscription agreement. You're going to have some documents, some legal documents, but we're always looking for that vesting to show that the IRA is the investor and it's not you personally. So that's pretty much it. And that's really just the thing that people aren't familiar with. Once you do that once, it's like riding a bike.
Okay. Now, I feel like when we opened our first self-directed IRA, we had a couple of considerations like choosing a custodian. Obviously, directed IRA, you are wanting to earn the business of people who are going to be self-directing your IRA. So what things should an investor consider when they're choosing a custodian? Because we have plan administrators, we have custodians. Are they different? They are different kinds of fee structures. And on top of that, the customer service side of things as well. How much education, how responsive are they? So what kinds of things should people be considering and looking for when they're choosing a provider?
So I would probably say if you start with what is the company first, ask yourself, are they a TPA or are they a custodian?
Okay.
Nothing against TPAs, but TPA stands for third party administrator.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like what it sounds. They're a third party. They're another party in between you and the actual custodian.
Okay.
The custodian is the one that holds the assets. The TPA is the one that does all the paperwork.
Okay.
We're both, right? We're the administrator and the custodian. Custodian means we're licensed to have a trust here in the state of Arizona. So we have it licensed. We have a charter through this Department of Insurance and Financial Services to the state of Arizona. We're the only licensed trust company to do self-directed IRA investments, but we can hold IRAs for any U.S. retirement account. So you want to work with the custodian because you just want to work with the same company that does the paperwork and holds the asset, in my mind, and not have another party in between. And then when it comes to which company you choose or which custodian you choose, look for the one that has the best service at a reasonable cost. The IRAs are the same. A Roth here and a Roth at a competitor is no different. You want the company that is in line with what you're investing in. Okay. There's companies, I will say, there's self-directed companies that specialize in holding metals, gold and silver. Mm-hmm. You don't want to bring your real estate portfolio to a company that specializes in gold and silver. They're just going to mess it up, right? So you want to work with a company that's in line with what you are going to invest in. I would say most of our investors here are small business owners, 9-to-5 job, W-2. They do investments passively, I would say, for the most part. They do invest in syndications. They invest in IRA LLCs. We actually have a sister company law firm. This is probably a nod to us as something that most companies don't have. We have a secondary company, a law firm, KKOS Lawyers. They actually do consultations on some asset protection if you need it. But one of the things they help set up for our directed IRA clients is what's called an IRA-owned LLC. Sometimes we'll set this structure up to get all of your IRA dollars, whether you have a Roth for yourself or Roth for your spouse. You've got 3 kids with 3 ESAs. You've got an HSA. You have a SEP IRA, and you want to just get all that money into one bank account. We have the solution for you, which is we have an LLC created where you're the manager of the LLC, but all your plans own a percentage of that LLC. Yeah. They all go in together at the same time. And all that really is, it's called a multi-member LLC. The owners are not people. The owners are IRAs. Okay. So on our books, we show one investment, which is the LLC. But here's the cool thing. All of the money in all your plans is now in one bucket, the business checking account of that LLC.
Does that LLC, because it's multi-member, have to file a tax return?
It does. And that's just a stipulation with any multi-member LLC. So if you do the multi-member LLC, you do have to file a partnership tax return, but you don't have to pay taxes, but they do require you to file the return.
Well, so, and this is one of the considerations, though, because sometimes people will come to me and say, well, then I'm going to get an LLC and then I could put it in my own bank account. And I'm like, we got kind of, I want to say, sold that by when we set up our IRA, our self-directed IRA the first time. And we just don't need it. Honestly, we shut it down. Like we're going to send this back to the custodian. It's just an extra layer of admin and that is an initial setup cost that they charge us. But we're not moving fast like that. Like our money goes into a thing and then it kind of sits there, like, because we're not buying our own real estate inside of that. And I'm not doing direct hard money loans. I'm putting it into our fund, and then our fund is doing it. So I feel like that process of choosing if you're going to do an LLC, like that's just, I don't want to say it's a big deal. It's not that big of a deal, but not everybody needs it. I don't think even most people need it.
Most people don't. But I will say the person that does need it is usually the one that they're investing in an investment that's got a lot of moving parts, right? Yes. A flip with a heavy rehab. Like for me, I don't have a IRA LLC because I mainly just use 2 accounts. Roth and HSA. It's all I qualify for. I don't qualify for the SEP. I don't qualify for the solo, right? I don't have kids. So I've got my Roth and my HSA. Okay. 2 accounts. that's extremely easy for me to get deployed on one promissory note, because I just list my Roth as a lender and I list my HSA as a lender on the same note. It's
Okay.
just a fractionalized note. Okay. That gets my money out on just one document. On the flip side, I have a physician, okay, client. They have 14 accounts.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, when you say 14 accounts, you could put 14 accounts on a promissory note. But here's the problem. You got 14 direction investment forms. You got 14. So if you're doing 6-month deals, if you got that many accounts, that person, it might be easier to just get that into one bank account, because you don't want to fill out a form every time you want to deploy all these accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends. Not everybody has 14 accounts. If you've got 2 or 3 or 4, very easy to manage. You don't need the LLC. And I will make this very clear. It is not a requirement. Some companies pitch you on this idea that
Yes.
you have to have the LLC. It is not a legal requirement to own alternative assets in an IRA without an LLC. The LLC is just an option, an in between the IRA custodian and the end asset. If you need it, if you need to partner lots of accounts together, or you've got some investment that you got a lot of money that goes in and out paying contractors. But if you're lending or being passive, you probably don't need the IRA LLC.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like they just wanted the fees for opening up our LLC and operating agreement, all that. And we don't do business with them anymore. Let's just put it that way. So, all right, we got a couple of questions here. What if the CTA and BOI is required then if the IRA LLC is required to report?
I mean, if it's required to report, yeah. If it's required to report, it's required to report. I mean, we're kind of going back and forth on that whole thing. I know that's kind of a disaster train wreck of reporting requirements, but
sure is fun to watch, though.
Yeah.
Is it too late in the year to start and fund a new SD Roth for 2024 contributions in addition to adding funds for 2025 to invest in, say, April of 25?
Great question. So it is not too late to make your 2024 contributions. You have until April 15th. If you haven't filed taxes or you need to amend them, you can still make contributions to really all of the plans we mentioned: traditional, Roth, your ESAs for your kids, the HSAs if you haven't made your HSA contribution. And if you make those contributions for 2024, sometimes if you haven't had a Roth yet, if you start a Roth, remember I said, you need 5 years of Roth seasoning and 59.5 to make it all tax free. Yeah. The cool thing is you start it today. If you make a contribution for 2024, your 5-year clock on your Roth IRA is January 1st, 2024.
Nice.
So you're already 16 months into the game of your 5-year clock. Now that's going to be key to you if you're in your 50s and you haven't had a Roth yet. Set one up because you want that 5-year clock rolling. So yes, 2024 contributions can be made, but here's the other important thing: 2025 contributions can be made today. You don't have to wait until the end of the year to make your contribution to an IRA. Again, that's what we're trained to do because we make our contributions when we're filing our taxes. Fidelity did a report just last year, and it showed that the larger IRAs had specific habits for the people that had large IRAs. One of the habits that they picked out was they made contributions early in the year. Most of the large IRAs that make contributions in January of the current year, not April when we're all doing it. Why? Because you can get your contribution in as soon as it turns January 1st. You can max out your 2025 contribution. Now you have it in and it's invested through the whole year. It has a whole year to grow. And when most people are just doing it as an afterthought because their CPA says we need to get a contribution into a traditional IRA to get you a tax deduction.
Mm-hmm.
Start thinking about getting money in a tax-free account and getting it invested. So what a lot of our clients are doing right now, and a lot of them that have just heard about this, they're getting their 2024 contributions in, and the same day they're getting their 2025 contributions in today, because now you've got more investment capital that you can invest.
Mm-hmm.
Max out your Roths. You can max out a Roth for a spouse. You can max out ESAs for 2 years. If you've got kids, you can make 2 years contributions to their ESAs, not just one. And same thing with the HSA.
Nice. So you got a little bit of time, about a month before that clock windows, and just get the money working. Just get it out there and get it working. If you want to get a hold of us, we have a directed IRA discount on your first year of the annual fees. So just reach out to us if you'd like to get that discount. Reach out to Nate to set up an appointment so that you can talk about all the stuff in your specific situation and find out which accounts and account types you qualify for, which might be a best fit for you. Again, they cannot give you investing advice, but I've noticed that you put on great education for not only compliance, but also just making the introductions to the different kinds of places they could invest, then just making sure that people are connected and networked, and so they have good opportunities in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, we find that, with self-direction, educated investors are better clients for us, because we only go as far as our investors are as our clients are as investors. So we want them at least to have all the tools at their tool belt, so they understand how it works, what their investment options are. We're never going to sell you an investment, which is good, but at least having enough information to be dangerous with, as I think is our goal.
Awesome. One last question before we wrap it up. I consider background checks and due diligence as part of investment costs. Are these costs able to be paid for through the SD Roth?
They should be. Any investment expense should be paid out of the Roth IRA. So that would even go for attorney's fees if you need to draft a note. They really should be paid. If it's an asset owned by the IRA should pay the expense. I will say the one expense you can pay is the administration of the IRA itself, because it's not an asset expense. It's an expense to have the IRA. So our custodial fees, I always tell people, pay that with a credit card. Okay. Some people say take it from my account. It makes no sense to take money out of a Roth IRA to pay fees. Okay. Leave that money invested and just pay our fees, a couple $100 a year. Just put that on a credit card. You get points. There's all sorts of benefits you get by paying it. The Roth IRA paying its own fees gets no benefit. Leave the money in the Roth. Let that invest in compound. You pay those little fees on a credit card.
Okay, so you can pay the fees with the account, but I mean, we just get points on ours, annually. So, and it's not too bad. Like you said, it's a couple $100 a year, and again, we have a discount for a little bit off that first year, and would love to have a conversation with you about getting you set up with your self-directed IRA. We don't get any kickback or any referral fees or anything from directed IRA like that. I think that's illegal, actually. Like, we're not allowed to get those.
We can't. Yeah, we can't. So, which is good. We're just here to educate people.
Exactly. So we just want to make connections, make networking, put our investments in front of you so that you can look at them, decide if you want to do it, and if it makes sense for you to invest inside or outside of your IRA, to be able to have a good person to be able to ask those kind of questions to. And so we'd love to have you reach out, because we want to help you figure out how to pay for the lifestyle that you're going for. So thank you so much, Nate, for helping us out and helping people learn what their options are, because it can make a big difference how you structure things and getting educated on how to best do that.
Thanks, Emma. Appreciate you guys.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time. See you guys.